So, I have financial goals that I've set for myself this year, and I really think that it's very important for everyone to have financial goals. But oftentimes people run into different obstacles, making it more difficult or seemingly impossible to achieve those goals, and it sucks. I have a bunch of financial goals that I've set for myself this year, and they all surround this ultimate goal that I have, which is to have a net worth of at least $0 by the end of this year. It's almost been 2 months into the year, and so far, being in this new reality that I've kind of created for myself, albeit for the better, has kind of made it seem like that goal might be a little bit harder to actually achieve. So I wanted to make this video to go over some of the challenges that I'm currently facing, but not only go over those challenges, but talk about how I plan on overcoming them. And I really hope you guys use this as some source of encouragement for whatever financial situation you may be going through, and hopefully it motivates you to actually find a way to overcome it. So starting off with the first one, the biggest financial change that I've ever had in my life started a few months ago when I moved into this house. Before I moved here, I was living at home with my parents for about a good year to ultimately save up to buy a house. And out the gate, I really appreciate having parents that gave me the opportunity to move back home to put myself in an even better financial position to achieve the goals that I had. But what's really funny is that during that time, when I didn't feel financially prepared enough, the housing market was great. And then when I was financially prepared enough, the housing market sucked. Regardless, I eventually went into the route of renting a house. It's not necessarily what I wanted, but I'm blessed either way. Anyway, that transition financially was definitely a big one. I went from paying only a small living expense on top of some groceries, my car note, and my gym membership, to paying for more groceries on top of maintenance and utilities and this huge rent that I now have. And no, I didn't go into this situation blindly. I looked over my spending habits and how much I make every single month, and I was able to conclude that I would be able to afford this, which I know in the grand scheme of things, I can. From the looks of it, I was gonna be perfectly fine up until my wedding. But sometimes you can't be fully prepared for a situation until you're actually in the situation. One thing I did learn is that moving into a house, whether you're renting it out or you're buying it around the same time where everything in life is getting more expensive, makes things really interesting. And that's because interest rates are going up. And I understand why interest rates are going up. When the pandemic was at its all-time craziest, supplies for everything were down and demand went down, obviously because people weren't doing anything. And as things started to quote unquote recover, demand for essential items and everything else went up, but it seems like supply started to slowly go back up. So with that, everything got more expensive and inflation therefore rose. So because of that, it seems like the solution is to increase interest rates, which will ultimately trickle down to everything that we buy and make it more expensive in hopes to slow down demand, which will hopefully have supply catch up to where it can even out and things can overall just get cheaper. So eventually, at some point in the future, hopefully everything will get back into a financial position similar to what it was a few years ago. But in the meantime, things are just more expensive. Now, when you have a big change, like moving from living with your family to moving into a house, you start buying more groceries and then you have to buy furniture. So when I'm buying groceries, I'm buying more of it, which means I have to spend more money. But then groceries are more expensive, so I have to spend even more money. I want to buy a new dining room table and new bedroom suits. And those are already going to be expensive because I didn't have to pay for it when I was living at home. But then because of everything that's going on with interest rates, furniture is even more expensive than it already would have been had I did this a few years ago. So basically more money is being spent due to the change I've made in my life, which I do not regret at all, especially for the future. I'm really happy for the position that I'm in, but now things are getting more expensive, so I'm spending way more money than I anticipated, which is annoying. And that annoyance includes deciding how much I want to save versus how much I want to put towards paying off debt. This actually goes towards a couple of goals that I set for myself. One of those is to save at least 3 times of my living expenses into a savings account by the end of the year. But another one of my goals was to pay off at least one of my credit cards. And the increase in interest rates is making this situation a lot more interesting. With credit cards, for example, the interest rates on those are going a lot higher. So if you're used to paying only the minimum off, it will now take you that much longer to do it because more of that money is going towards the bank as opposed to your principal or the actual amount that you owe. So with that being said, if you have even more money to put towards minimum balance so you can pay it off even faster and avoid that interest, then that's something that you might be encouraged encouraged to do. And on the other hand, with interest rates going up, it's costing banks more money to borrow money from each other. And they make money by holding our money. One of the ways they encourage people to keep money with them is by increasing the interest rates off their high yield savings accounts. And that gives people the opportunity to make more money by just having their money sit in an account. I actually made a video about me opening a high yield savings account with PNC Bank that pays me a 4% interest rate, which is way more than I've ever had in any savings account that I've had. So if you have extra money to put towards savings to make more money, you might be encouraged to do that as well. So with that being said, one of the issues I'm having is deciding how much money should I put towards paying off my credit card debt, for example, versus how much money should I put towards saving for the short and the long term. I just know that I want to be as financially prepared for the future as I can be, but I also know both of these could have a positive impact on that. All these problems seem to be hitting me kind of all at once, and it may seem a little bit over dramatic, but I'm sure there's a lot of you guys out there that feel the same way, especially when it comes to your finances. So with all that in mind, and considering all the little roadblocks I'm currently dealing with financially, here are some of the solutions that I'm going to stick to hopefully help me overcome these situations. So when it comes to saving versus paying off debt, my goal is to put more money towards paying more than the minimum balance on my credit cards and put at least the minimum amount in my high yield savings account. Like I said earlier, interest rates in savings accounts are really high right now, which could give people a huge opportunity to make a lot of money just for having their money sit there. But interest rates in credit cards are even higher. In my case, so is the balance. So with that being said, the additional amount of money I would have to spend to pay off my credit card balances, especially if I only put the minimum, is way more than the amount of money that I would make by putting money consistently into a high yield savings account based off what I can afford to put into it. And this isn't a universal answer for everybody. When it comes to choosing between the two, my unprofessional opinion is to pick which one you think will be best for you financially in the short term. So with that, you have to keep in mind your own situation. For example, if you want to save, you have to think about, is there something you're saving for in the immediate future, or is there something you're saving for in the long term, or how much money do you currently have saved now? When it comes to paying off debt, you want to keep in mind what are your interest rates on your credit cards or your individual credit card, and how much debt do you currently have, and are you trying to qualify for something important in the future like a mortgage or a car, and do you need to go on ahead and increase your credit score? Another solution that I have is to follow my budgeting closely this month, find the patterns between this month, last month, and what I was spending when I was living at home, and make those proper changes. This is a pretty obvious universal solution when it comes to finances, but not everybody takes the time to put pen and paper and write down how much they make every single month and how much they spend every single month. Now, when it comes to budgeting, I normally use the Mint app, which is really cool because it automatically tracks my spendings and other cool stuff like my net worth. But I also input everything into an Excel spreadsheet that I have, which honestly, manually inputting that information kind of keeps me grounded a bit more because I'm automatically seeing the changes as I'm putting the information in. Sounds a little weird, but it helps me. I used this budgeting strategy before I moved here, and it made me more confident that I would be okay financially when I did, on top of other big changes that I have coming up, like getting married. But I think sometimes, and maybe I'm just speaking for myself, you may not necessarily accept the financial changes that you have to have until it's too late. So when I track my income and my spendings at the end of this month for this month, I'm gonna compare that to last month, and I'm also gonna compare that to the past few months that I had when I was living at home. And I wanna find those similarities of things I was spending my money on here versus when I was living at home. Because there are certain things I was spending my money on at home that I can't necessarily do anymore, like going out to eat more often or buying new shoes or new clothes a little more frequently than I should be. I had that flexibility when I was at home because my expenses were a lot less, but the flexibility I have now isn't as grand or as high, so I have to be aware of that. And that in my mind will help me in the short-term future. But I definitely believe that my financial situation is definitely going to get a lot better in the future, but at least in the short term, I know these are some of the changes that I need to work on to hopefully achieve the financial goals I set for myself. But what are some of the goals that you guys have for yourself? Make sure you leave comments below and let me know what those goals are. Are there any obstacles you've been facing over the short couple of months that we've had this year? And what are you trying to do to accomplish that? But I do hope that whatever goals you guys have, you do accomplish by whenever you want to accomplish those. And I do appreciate you guys watching as always. And until next time, take care.